How's it going, YouTube? My name is Rhyan Reyes, otherwise known as Sector 7. I am a composer and sound designer. Welcome to my channel, Sector 7 Music. As a quick update, I got a brand new computer. I got one of the new iMac M3 desktops, and I am loving it because it is super fast. So I am going to be coming out with a lot better content, a lot better quality content, if you will, and kind of got a studio upgrade with all sorts of different things here and there, but you're going to be seeing a lot better quality in videos here in the future. So, quick rundown. Today, I am going to be doing a kind of a mix down, a light mix down of some music I did for a previous video on Asylum, the canceled third installment of the American McGee's Alice franchise video game. And it got canceled by EA just very recently. These tracks are actually going to be free to download, free to take at your will, whatever you want to do with. But at the same time, let's kind of get into it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. All right, guys. So this is the track that I wrote a couple of previous videos back, and yeah, let's kind of organize this thing. Let's do some panning. Let's do all the necessary, very basic fundamentals so that it's better in quality and more unified. Okay, so I want to see the entire track as it is. This one, so this track was written in 3/4, 6/8, and 4/4. Oh, you know what? Oh, I wonder if, yeah, let's do this. So we're going to kind of rearrange this. We're going to kind of make it a little bit better. So what I really like to do is I like to build my tracks up, start those dynamics very soft and very low, or I should say introduce one part and then another part and then build it up until the end of the track is really big and boisterous. What I had a plan was, before that, sorry, my ADHD is getting the best of me. Let's organize this really quick. These guys right here we go. These two right over here are things that I recorded that I love to put into music. And basically what this is, you know, some sort of drone or some sort of noise or something that's very unsettling that you don't really hear, but you definitely feel within the track. So I consider these sound effects or accents or some sort of design feature to it, which in general, I'm going to put these four all together in a group in a track stack. Summoning track stack, specifically multi-purpose track stack that functions as a mix subgroup and can be saved as a patch. You can record and play MIDI regions on the main track for software instrument subtracks or remote control recording on audio subtracks. The difference between that and the folder stack is a basic track stack that lets you mute, solo, and control volume from the main track. Select this option to organize your tracks. So we're going to select the summoning stack. Here we go. And then we are going to name these accents, and what I like to say is either candy or texture, those sort of things, as long as I know exactly what it is. So accents, texture, that's what these guys are going to be for. And then you can actually grab the entire thing and it'll take all those tracks with them. So you can place them before or after any other tracks. I have them after my strings because in my mind, priority takes in strings first, then the accents. And then we have big drum, scary strings, evil strings. These guys, I kind of want to go in my strings as well too. So let's do it like this. Let's put these evil strings and the scary strings, which the scary strings are just a drone, more of a build-up in strings. Let's solo this real quick so you can hear. It's pretty quiet, but you can definitely get the gist of it. And as it builds and builds and builds, then your evil strings are going to come in. Because in this section here, I have a lot of tension, and I want that tension to build to the point of resolution. I'm going to put the strings there. That goes there. The big drums, piano, tube bells, and the box, I'm going to all put under percussive. Because if you didn't know, a piano is actually considered a percussive instrument. So makes kind of sense that I put all this in there. Percussion. It's not necessarily drums like kick, snare, toms, or anything like that. It's more for dynamic. It's more for texture, as well as it's more for like movement of the track. Okay, so now that we kind of have this organized a little bit here, I definitely love to color each region. So when it comes to coloring, I mean, color is really good for not only organization, but for visual cue as well. What I like to do is I like to do it very, very nice and pretty, or I actually would do an organization. I think this one is going to be a little bit of the two. So I definitely go towards the fuchsias, purples, blues, and greens first. So when it comes to percussion, I think we are going to choose this green that's actually on here for everything. So what I'm going to do is shift and select, and this is the color. So if you notice real quick, this is the color that is on the track here, that guy. But when you select all of them, it's going to give you all the optional colors that are in all the selected areas. So if you want to make them all uniform and in one single color, then we're going to just choose the color that we want. And then for strings here, I generally like to do more purples. And then, I think I'm going to end up doing this fuchsia color here. So it all just sticks out. The cool thing about this too is that you can collapse the folder, the track stacks, if you will, so that you're not heavy with a lot of tracks. This is really good when you have a ton of tracks. When you have, sometimes I'll have upwards to about 100, 150 tracks, and I have to group every single one of those things. And it can get messy if you don't organize them. Okay, so let's kind of do that there. All right, this one is just a real quick track, so it's not going to be too terribly long. Then from there, let's select all of this and then just select your locator. And before we go any further, why don't we take a listen to the track and just kind of see where I was at before today. Here we go. All right. So it wasn't that bad. It's not that bad. However, I did notice that I wanted to actually... Okay, so one thing that I like to do is I like to have a build-up. When I say build-up, I mean dynamics. Something start off quiet to a degree where it will build up in the track, and then it will cause a lot more tension or a lot of buildup. So by that being said, I wanted to create a intro. Now let's spread this part out just a little bit. And what I had in mind was, I think I want to solo the music box before everything else kind of comes in. So then from there, oh, you know what? Let's actually move this guy here. We're going to just duplicate him there. We're going to have it like this. And that way it can kind of give you a little bit of a head start. It's not everything all at once. I want to start off maybe this music box. And I want to pan this music box where it's not going to be so much in the way of everything else, but it still sticks out because this guy is going to be a little bit of the star of the show. I love doing binaural panning. Binaural panning is mainly for those who listen to things on headphones. I like to kind of have it tailored for that when I do a mix down or rundown. And usually percussion is going to be around here in this 3D space. So what I want is a little bit more towards center because I do want them to stick out. I just got these new Beyerdynamic 770 Pros and they are fantastic. If you need a new pair of headphones that dials in and focuses, get a pair of these. One of the best headsets I've ever had. If anything, I would probably have him center, almost like if it were vocals. You know what? Actually, that's a good idea. I kind of like it a little bit in center. The next part that we're going to do, these guys right here, this is where the tension builds up. The drums kick in. Let's actually mark this. So this is tension slash, and then we'll say drums because that is the big percussive part of the whole thing. Which we're going to make those drums sound really big. I want them to be loud and obnoxious. Let us do it like this. I believe I have... This guy right here is a really good reverb. I know a lot of people like to use this reverb specifically for electronic music, things like that, but there's just something about it that's just so big and airy. And I really do like that. I want something big, I want something airy, and then you can dial it back if you don't need that much. We're going to just come up slightly on this guy for now. We're at 3 seconds on the decay. The diffusion is going to be at 75, so it's going to spread out a little bit more. The modulation is, I want that going to be pretty much all the way down. And then the dampening, I want just a little bit there. About 80% on the size itself. Feedback, 0%, pre-delay, 0 milliseconds. And then from there, let's kind of hear what these guys sound like. In some cases, I really don't solo out instruments. I want to hear it in the whole mix. What I ended up learning by doing that was that you're not getting the bigger picture as it's mixing into the track itself. So I try my hardest not to solo everything right away. Pretty much salt to taste. There you go. So at about 44% on your actual mix itself, it's going to give it that wetness that it needs. But at the same time, you still get the nice, big, thick attack from the actual drums itself. The next thing I definitely want to do is EQ these guys. Okay, somewhere around the 400, 500 frequency range, 250 hertz, and let's kind of sweep it from there. So we narrow this down, we go up a bunch, and then this is, so when we sweep it, we're basically looking for those gnarly frequencies, those bad frequencies. Let's drop this guy down just a little bit. Just so we can have a little bit of volume to it as well, too, because your mid-range frequencies are going to give you a lot of that volume that you definitely want. And then maybe what we can do is cut out a little bit of this guy. Let's go to 12, because the more frequencies we're not using, chop those out. That makes room for your other frequencies, for your other instruments to shine through. Specifically drums, bass, things like that. They will ruin and muddy your mix up. I'm going to boost around the 200 hertz. I'm going to boost that about 3 dB. I can definitely hear a little bit more of that attack, which I boosted things up. Now take it down and compensate it just a little bit. I want my drums panned specific. Percussion kind of goes around this area here. When I was a percussionist in the orchestra, and I was always in the far top right corner, right-hand side of the corner. It gave me a sense of scope of hearing the entire thing. That's kind of where I take that notion of, okay, where do I want my drums? Where do I want my percussion when I do mixing or panning? When you do genre specific though, that's something else. So for instance, you know, when you're doing more of an orchestral sort of mix, you definitely want to pan it correctly. You want to pan it where you would be seeing the orchestra. You would see where the drummer, the percussion, or wherever they are at. When you do electronic music, then you want to pan accordingly. Aphex Twin, deadmau5, Square Pusher, those three people do amazing panning when it comes to percussion. I just love the way that they do their thing. From this side, we're going to probably take our drums over here. I actually like the drums with a balanced pan, if anything. And if I did, I would probably put them at about 10% all the way down to center. I actually like that instead. This track isn't really an orchestral track in its entirety. So some orchestra, some big drums, and I want those drums to sound unrealistically big. The balance are going to give you a little bit more of that oomph that you need. And then from there, I have this really good idea. Wider. So Polyverse, they do this really cool plugin called Wider, and it's free and it's awesome. And what it'll do is it'll take your stereo image and it will spread it out very, very far. And let's see what kind of trouble we can get into with this one. I'm not going 200% because that spectrum is a little too much. If we go down all the way to about 50%, then it's going to take it to that next level. It's going to give it just enough push, just enough where it's going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. Let's move on to something else now. When it comes down to it, let's EQ this music box just real quick. I know I'm a little ADHD when it comes down to my mixing. That's just kind of how it is sometimes, especially if you're on the clock. So I definitely want to take out some of this low end. That's going to give a little bit more room for the other stuff to pop through. It's going to give it a little bit more of a softer, not so harsh attack. So we're seeing a lot of activity around the 500 all the way up to the 800 hertz mark. Let's see if we can make this a little bit tighter. Just a little bit right there. And then maybe boost up this. Okay, I want to rely on my hearing, not my visual, because sometimes, if not all the time, visual will actually mess with the way it should sound. I like that a lot right there. So when it comes to strings, so I have this little cheat sheet of orchestral panning. It's definitely more consistent, if anything. So when it comes to the cello and when it comes to the double bass, all of these guys right here are going to be panned specifically. Same thing with violin and viola. So your first violins are going to be right over here, all the way down to the left. And then your second violins are going to be closer to center. Then I am going to put them pretty much around here. So I want them a little bit closer to center, not so far away, but closer to center to me feels really good. Let's do some viola next. And then viola is pretty much going to be right next to the cellos. So it's going to be somewhat around here. So I really love this orchestral panning scheme, right, that we have over here. Goes from your lower end instrumentation as of your double bass and your cello, and then it kind of mixes into your violas in the middle, and then it goes into more of your brighter instruments, violins 1 and your violins 2. The other day we went to go see the Final Fantasy Orchestra concert, and I can't tell you how awesome it was seeing all the instruments the way that they should be up on stage. And if you really want to get a good handle on orchestral panning sound, the way it should sound, go to an orchestra as soon as you can. They are one of the best experiences you'll ever have as a mix engineer or as a producer or composer. Not necessarily directly center, but I want them to be a little bit off, because center I have spaced out for a little bit more of my percussive instruments and the music box. Even though the music box isn't playing here, I would still just keep it away. We're still going to do some binaural panning here because it sounds amazing in these headphones. Definitely get a good pair of headphones to mix a lot of your orchestral or music in general. You know, you really want to hone in and focus in on some really good quality sounds and really tweak it the way that you need to tweak it. When it comes to the cello, you would think I've done this a billion times, but yep. Oh, it sounds so good in this ear. Okay, let's move on. Double bass. Double bass just adds so much to your music. Oh, I love that. That sounds so much better already. You know what? I want to try something real quick. These scary strings. It just sounds like it has a nice wobble to it, but it sounds full, like if it's a lot of strings. Let's take up some frequencies a little bit. Specifically some mids. I'm really trying to hear these. It does make the track a little bit more full. I definitely want them to peak out just a little bit, We're going to take out a lot of this as well too. Okay, that peaks out just enough, That's what I want. To pan these guys, they kind of remind me a little bit more on the line of viola. Since viola is here, we have viola here. I want these guys maybe here. Now that I pan them, they are a little bit loud. Panning definitely helps with the overall sound of what you're trying to do. When you pan it, if you pan it closer to center, it's going to be louder. If you pan it further away, it's going to be quieter. Okay, let's move on now. Evil strings. This is just a cacophony of strings that it sounds like violins or... It sounds like everything. It sounds just like everybody is doing something. So these evil strings, let's pan first this time and see if we can get the same result. Blend it in a little bit more. And I'm wondering too, if I don't need to binaurally pan something like this as much as I just need to spread it out. Because again, these are going to be a little bit more texture, if anything. Actually, let's experiment. Let's fuck around and find out. Automation window. Go into main and we go to pan. Absolute. And let's put just a few points and then let's see where this actually lands us. So at the highest, let's actually have somewhere around here. And then maybe what we can do is do 2 more points where it would go down soft and another one go down a little soft as well too. Okay, let's move these up just a little bit more because they are pretty heavy on each side. So let's go up just a little bit. We'll go 10. I like that. I like that a lot. Kind of adds to that tension because it's not really giving you a specific, like, straight, narrow, this is where it's going to be panned at. You know, as of the other strings are going to be here, they're going to stay there. They're going to be fixed here, they're going to stay there. These strings are going to go from here to there to here to there. And from doing that, it's giving you a little bit of unevenness, a little bit of more of that tension. Okay, so let's move on. Let's do some violin. So when it comes to violin, I want them to shine in the mix, but I don't want them to be so bright where they just overpower everything else. What I definitely want to do is I want to take this low end out and kind of focus a little bit more on the high end and in the high mids. And then I want to maybe cut just a little bit as well, too, when it comes to it. Let's narrow this down. So around the 2K mark actually needs a little cut. So 2K, let's kind of cut you down. I'll bring you up just a little bit. Maybe a little bit less. About right. That sounds pretty good. Let's do this guy next, which is viola. So viola is going to be a little bit deeper than your violin, lower register. So we're going to treat it as such. We're going to kind of boost a little bit more of those lower end frequencies. Okay, that's going to give it a little bit more full body when it comes to your violas. Maybe some boost over here as well, too. I want them to underline the violin.